everybody. Welcome again to another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. As everybody knows, gold is all over the world, commodities are all over the world, and we will go literally to the ends of the earth and back to find them. But not only will we go, but we'll also bring Australian expertise to very remote regions. And with us today, we have an executive, Dave Mason of Newpeak Metals, that's going to talk to us all about that because he is running truly a global campaign on a search of gold. Anyway, with that introduction, Dave Mason, Newpeak Metals, welcome to 18 Minutes with 180 Markets.
Thank you very much, Greg. Very nice introduction from you.
Dave, everybody has a story. Just tell us in a few words, how did you get to where you are today?
Well, that's very interesting because I'm out of the energy space and I've worked offshore Australia for most of my career. And now I find myself dabbling in gold and minerals in a number of jurisdictions around the world. Most of my career has been more focused on management and leadership, more so than the technical aspects of geology and mining. And I guess what's really important to me and to Newpeak is my team. That's what really makes Newpeak stand apart. I might just introduce a couple of those members. My chairman, Nick Mather, renowned for a great copper gold company, Sol Gold, operating in Ecuador. Nick has transformed that company and it's an incredibly valuable company. Jason Beckton, one of my directors, great experience, also a geologist. So Nick Mather's a geologist, I'm a geologist. Jason Beckton is a geologist. Jason's got extraordinary experience in gold and precious metals in South America and Europe, two of the areas that Newpeak works in. And we've just taken on an exploration manager because, of course, working in a number of different jurisdictions, you've got to have a very good qualified exploration manager that can drive each of the teams in those different areas. So Jason McNamara has got a lot of experience in Europe, Australia, Africa, and he's just recently joined the team. And we've set up, technical people, legal, corporate administration people, logistics people, tenure people in each of those different jurisdictions. So that's Newpeak. Yes, it does need a leader like myself, but equally so, we need a really good, professional, highly experienced team to implement our projects and ensure our success.
Absolutely. And Dave, just drilling on that a little bit further, do you think your background as perhaps in leadership and understanding businesses has helped Newpeak get this type of geographic diversity that maybe if you didn't have that background, you just wouldn't be able to achieve?
I'd have to say definitely, Greg. The exploration resource mining industry is a global industry. It's an international industry. You've got to be prepared to move to where the resources are. And partly what comes with that is, of course, different countries, different cultures, different religions, different social, community, political aspects. And those are the things that you've got to understand. You've got to work with local communities and local governments. And without, good networks and relationships, doesn't matter what the resource is, you'll never be successful.
Absolutely. And, on the focus on new and changing things, before we get into the projects, which I want to get into, just have to ask about the name change recently. Can you just touch on it a little bit?
Okay, yeah. So we've been Dark Horse Resources for 5 or 6 years. That name came out of the DGR Global Group, who has significant stakes in a number of resource mining companies. And our company at the time was the fledgling company. And so they called us Dark Horse because, we were the one that would be coming from behind and finally getting there and making a winning success. And look, it was an exceptional name for a period of time. However, we focused only on Argentina. And more recently, we've expanded and changed our corporate strategy and direction, looking at gold and mineral projects throughout the world. So I think with that change, a rebranding of the company needs to occur, and a name change is a significant stimulus to ensuring that rebranding does occur. I have to say we've got some passionate shareholders who love the name Dark Horse, but when you weigh these things up, one needs to make that change, implement that change, and move forward.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned before, that you're much more than an Argentinian explorer right now. You're also in Finland and New Zealand. I'd love to discuss all three regions for you. Whichever one you want to pick first, happy to go with that one.
Okay, well, Finland, because that was the first cab off the rank. And I have to thank my director, Jason Beckton, who I mentioned earlier. He's been managing a European gold exploration company for the last 5 years or so, and has created a big network in Europe, particularly Northern Europe, and provided this opportunity to Newpeak towards the end of last year. And I took hold of that and engaged with the vendor Sotkamo. They had a group of gold properties in Finland, and we were able to conclude a very favourable deal for Newpeak, 100% ownership of these gold properties at quite a reasonable upfront cash payment, no future vendor commitments or exploration commitments, fully under our control to take the projects forward. So that was Finland. That was the first of the company's movement into other jurisdictions beside Argentina. And that was fairly quickly followed by Otago in New Zealand. Now, I've had a relationship with a group of people, executives of ex-BHP Rio, who have been operating in that Otago region of New Zealand for about the last 10 years. And we were able to, again, conclude a really attractive earn-in arrangement with those gentlemen, whereby we can earn up to 75% interest in those gold properties in Otago. It's a very large footprint of gold properties adjacent to Macraes mine, which is Oceana's current operating mine. So that was the second phase of our expansion in other jurisdictions.
And is it because it's set up as an earn-in is just much more economically effective, I suppose, from Newpeak's perspective?
Yeah, so it's minimal expenditure, really, 600,000 New Zealand dollars over 18 months to crystallise that 75% equity earning. And then we have an option out to the three gentlemen that are the vendors, where they can then continue in a joint venture arrangement with Newpeak if they so choose, or we can acquire their equity for cash or royalty payments. So that's all set in place, and it's very attractive to Newpeak.
Right. And then finally, I guess, circling back into Argentina.
Look, the properties that we've got in Argentina, the two properties, Cachi in the southern part of Argentina, Las Peñas in the northwestern part of Argentina, they're really good properties. Argentina went through a bit of a geopolitical phase last year. It was difficult for me to raise funding to do much on those projects. We put in place a strategy for divestment, but subsequently we've been able to raise quite a deal of cash. And we have now decided to spend some of that cash on moving those projects forward ourselves. And we believe they really deserve the drilling that we intend to give them over the summer in these coming months.
Right. And just for investors that don't know, I believe it's near Barrick's, huge 1 million ounce discovery. Is that correct?
The Las Peñas project in the northwestern part in the San Juan province is very close to Barrick's project, and there's quite a number of other companies with very large gold projects and mines up in the San Juan province. It's a very friendly mining province of Argentina. And the Cachi project in the southern part of Argentina is also in a very fertile geological gold environment. and with some very significant mining companies. So you have Newmont with their Cerro Negro mine. You've got Anglo Gold Ashanti with their Cerro Vanguardia mine, and Yamana with their Cerro Moro mine. So again, a mining-friendly province, Santa Cruz in the southern part of Argentina, with some very, very significant gold resources and mines.
Incredible. So obviously we have a lot of diversity here, a lot of projects on the move. Maybe to help frame it for investors from a news perspective, what should people, when they look at Newpeak investors, what should we be looking for over the next 6 to 12 months from your point of view?
Well, we're well funded. As I said, we're cashed up.
Yep.
We've raised something like $2.5 million over the last 2 or 3 months. We've still got just under $2 million in the bank. We have sufficient funds to implement first stage drilling programs in each of Argentina, New Zealand, and Finland. We are currently planning the logistics for those drilling programs. We've got people on the ground. We've engaged drilling contractors. We're doing final permitting in some of those areas, and we'll be drilling before the end of this year. So it's more than likely that we'll kick off Otago, New Zealand drilling in December. The trigger there is the spring lambing season in New Zealand, which is very, very important to the local communities, obviously. In Argentina, we're waiting on a water permit for the Santa Cruz Cachi drilling program. And we expect to get that in late November and could well be drilling there in December this year. So it's likely we'll be drilling both in Argentina at Cachi and Capburn, the main Otago project in New Zealand. And Finland, we're at the moment transferring the exploration permits into Newpeak's Finland's subsidiary companies. We've got the majority of those transferred now. We're waiting to conclude that. So that's really the trigger for commencing drilling in Finland. Again, we've got the logistics being prepared at the moment. We're likely to start that drilling program probably January, February. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves. 2 drilling programs in 2 jurisdictions running simultaneously will be enough. And we'll delay the 3rd one until early next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking that it's rare that you find companies that are doing more than one project at a time in terms of on the drilling front, because that's truly where the rubber meets the road, if you will. But not only do you have 2 coming up between now and kind of calendar of 2020 taking place, but also then you have something else happening in Q1 of calendar 2021 in Finland. Also, and I'm curious, and I don't know if investors know either, in Finland, is there a time of year because it's so cold that just nothing can happen?
Right, so we're more in the southern part of Finland.
Okay.
Your comment is absolutely correct for the northern part of Finland and Lapland, where there are restrictions in operating in parts of the year. But where we are in Tampere, in the southern part of Finland, we can work almost 12 months of the year. So there are no restrictions for us to implement a drilling program there.
Right. But I still think it works really well to your point about how do you manage a business. Firstly, as you said, you have to have the cash to make it all happen, because if you don't, unfortunately, nothing can happen. That's the way it is. But you're fully cashed up, and then it's a question of getting the right people into the right places, and then your ability, as in Dave Mason's ability, to manage it all happening.
Yeah.
Not so easy, but it sounds like you do have a clear path that's very easy to understand for investors.
I believe we have a very clear path, and as you've stated, it really is the team that we've got in place. And I tell you, management and leadership is very easy when you've got the right team. And Newpeak has that right team. So we've got excellent people working in each of those jurisdictions. They're working very diligently. And look, exploration, resource mining, it's an industry where you've got to be flexible. You've got to have optionality. Not everything is going to be successful, but I think where Newpeak sits at the moment, we do have flexibility and optionality. We've got exceptional gold projects in 3 jurisdictions. We've got a number of balls up in the air, and one of those balls is going to land, if not several of those balls is going to land over the next couple of months to 6 months. And we're going to achieve that discovery of a tier 1 gold project, which is our ultimate objective, the discovery and subsequent definition of a tier 1 gold project in one of those jurisdictions. And that will really be the trigger for realizing value for our shareholders and, of course, for ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I mean the management has put a lot of time and effort, and I really do need to thank my management team for supporting myself and the company over these last few years. You know, we've invested big time in Newpeak. Most of our remuneration we take in shares. So, for instance, you know, I'm a 6-7% shareholder in Newpeak. Some of my other colleagues are also very significant shareholders. So we're here for the long term.
Absolutely.
You know, resources is a long-term business, but the success does come if you're diligent and you persevere. It's like a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we believe we're nearing the end of that marathon, and we're going to see some success in the very near future.
Absolutely. Well, considering that you have 3 projects with results coming out in the next 12 months, as I'm sure you're well aware, that's very unusual. And that certainly sounds like you're more in the towards the end and towards the beginning, if you will. And I'm sure there have been a lot of sleepless nights along the way. Dave, in conclusion, any last minute thoughts for our audience?
No, but I would encourage you to follow us. We're fairly exposed in social media these days, and I really think that's the way to be, as well as other more traditional media. You'll see a news flow coming out continuously over the next weeks and months, and I'm sure we're going to have some really exciting news for you. So please follow us. I would like to thank yourself, Greg, and particularly Sean of 180 Markets. You've supported us well in our capital raising efforts the last couple of months, and you've shown great interest in continuing that support. We really need the likes of groups like yourself, you know, to broadcast our story, both in Australia and around the world, not just to our shareholders, but also to newcomers who might like to invest, and we would welcome that investment, or we would welcome sharing the story with you if you would like to make contact with us.
Absolutely. Dave, thank you very much. And please keep us posted with all the results, in addition to just following the ASX announcements, if you will.
Very much so. Thanks very much, Greg, for your time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.